good morning, and good morning again. Happy Saturday to you. We're in the month of February of 2023. Let me just say that it is just simply a blessing to be found on the wake up list this morning. If you can hear me or you can see me, it simply means that you are a survivor. Congratulations for pressing your way through despite what life has thrown at you. The good news is if you can hear or see me, that you are still a survivor. And I need to tell you on a Saturday morning, what didn't kill you will certainly make you better. Welcome to our Facebook Live family. Those of you who are joining by Facebook Live, those of you who are even tuning in by way of YouTube, let me say welcome to you again this morning. And then for those that may even be joining by way of phone, we say welcome to you as well. It is another Saturday that the good Lord above has allowed us to be able to tune in. And what a delight it is. We have some information for you this morning and some resources. Absolutely. That's how we do it here. Maybe you're just joining for the first time and you're saying, I'd like to send this to someone else. I want to show you how you can join. Or you can even send this to someone else by hitting that share button. Every Saturday morning from 9 to 10, 60 minutes. You can go to Facebook Live under the handle Dr. K.O. Williams Space Ministry, or you can go to our YouTube channel, Dr. K.O. Williams Space Ministry, same handle. And also you can dial in, as you see, for a person who doesn't have social media presence. I want to also invite you to talk directly to us with our Your Voice link at the very bottom. All you have to do is type into your browser bit.ly/RealTalk Your Voice. My friends, that'll put you straight into us, and you can send us new topics, new areas of concern. If you need some coaching around different areas, certainly we could give that to you as well. Listen, 60 minutes. We go hard in, unapologetic. This is a real conversation with real grown folks. We ask you to not have children because we're real straightforward, dealing with life's issues. Absolutely. Straight, honest, transparent conversation. But we never leave the conversation without offering you some practical tools. And boy, do we have some for you today. Anyone can join. And so let's get started today. I want to say to you that we've been dealing the first part of this year around a topic that, listen, it needs no introduction, because if you're living in this world, you know that there is a crisis in the Black men's community. And we're trying to raise awareness, unapologetic, just talking about the state of Black men in America. We can go to your local city. I promise you, this information is relevant to any city in America. The state of Black men. Black men are in a crisis. And we as a people, we as a country, we've got to rise to the occasion and speak truth to power and really begin to unpack this crisis that we find ourselves in around the state of Black men. Now, we're going to get started because I have some great conversation for you. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and do a little housekeeping. Listen, if we say anything that you can appreciate, use, or apply, we ask you to just simply chime in. Good morning. Amen. Thank you. I agree. Or if you don't agree, listen, this is straight, honest, transparent conversation. We're about trying to get some information out there. I'm all right if you don't agree either. But we want to ask you to do one thing, is to make your case. I don't need any just chronic complainers, but what I'm going to give you some information. And as one of my mentors says, unless you got something better, we're going to go with what I got. All right, there it is. So I'm going to ask you to hit that share button also, because you may have a friend, a loved one, a family member who has a Black man who is in crisis. Good morning, Sister Inez, all the way out of the Warrenton area. What a blessing it is to see you this morning. Brother David, you know, you always in with me. God bless you for tuning in. Sister Carolyn Jordan, listen, shouting out all the way down in Warrenton is hot and on point this morning. God bless you this morning. I'm going to ask you to help us get the word out. My good mentor, Mr. Gene Flanagan, thank you so much for tuning in. I promise you, my friends, today is a day that you're going to be glad that you tuned in. We've got a conversation for you, and I'm going to ask you to chime in. Listen, let's get started because we're talking about the state of Black men in America. It doesn't matter to me whether you're in the inner city. I've been several inner cities and we find the same challenge. I've been in rural America, pastor there as well. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where you go, there is a crisis with Black men in America. And we plan to spend the next couple of weeks talking about it. I've gotten some confirmations with some guest speakers who will be coming to talk about the state of Black men as well. I'm going to ask you, you know someone, to invite them again because we want to have a conversation. But I'm a action-oriented individual. And guess what? When we get through with the dialogue, we want to know where's the where is the real action to be taken. All right, so let's do this. I have a PowerPoint prepared for you today. This is one of the resources that you can have. I do a lot of research and I found this PowerPoint today. I'd love to share it with you. I'm that guy. What I have, I'm willing to share. I don't have no hoarding around resources, right? Because the more we know, the more we can do. All right. And so today we want to talk about one word, colorblindness. Ooh, let's get started. I'm telling you right now, there is this notion around being colorblind. And so many people, they take this word and we've redefined it now. It sounds real nice for a person to say, I don't see color. Oh, I just see the person. But be clear about one thing. It is misleading because when you peel back the layers, there is no such thing. I'm going to go out there and tell you around color blindness because there are certain things that inform certain people. And those certain things have a lot to do with the person's culture. There it is. I want to talk to you right there. And so we all can come to the same place, but we don't have to deny our culture in that unifying. It is a new term that is called color blindness, and it is very misleading. Let's get started. So I found this PowerPoint, and she's one of my favorite authors, Michelle Alexander. We're going to be dealing with mass incarceration over the next couple of sessions. Good morning, Sister Sherry. Always good to see you this morning. And so what I want to talk about is this issue around Black men and being incarcerated. I want you to take for a moment before we go any further and just think about the number of Black men that you know in your circle, in your network, who are incarcerated right now or who have been incarcerated over the last 10 to 15 years. We're going to show you some staggering facts because what I learned from President Obama is that the facts are stubborn. Despite what you feel, the facts are what the facts are. That's why, good morning, Sister Nika. Always good to see you, my friend. Sister Amber, what a delight it is to see you all the way up north in the New England area. I'm just happy to find you all tuning in. Listen, when you think about the number of Black men in your network, in your circles, in your families who have been incarcerated, that's what I want to deal with today. This notion about Black men and incarceration. Let's get at it this morning. And I'll be glad. This is just one of many resources I'll be glad to share with you. Next slide, please. All right. So when I look at this whole notion here around incarceration, this is a fact from the U.S. Bureau of the Justice. This is a legitimate organization from the U.S. government. You can see, just look now, in 1925, how many people were incarcerated? That means people in the U.S. and the federal prison system. In 1925, you can see it was under 200,000, sitting at about 100,000 people halfway in that year, in 1925. My friends, if you fast forward from the U.S. Bureau of Justice, this is a legitimate organization with our government system. They stopped at 2015 when this research was done. And you know that that's almost 10 years ago. 10 years ago, almost, it was right at 1,476,847 people that were incarcerated. 1,476,847 people incarcerated. That's a lot of human beings behind bars. And I want to tell you something. We're going to deal just a little bit deeper with that. Next slide, please. When you look at the U.S. compared to other countries, you say, Williams, why is this important? It's important for one reason. Because here's the thing. America, we hail as the gold standard America. We consider other countries third world. Now, I want you to look at this stat. This comes from the Walsley World Prison Brief, London Institute of Criminal Policy Research. And you see the link down at the bottom. I want to give you some context because some people have become numb to the fact of sending people to prison. In India, do you know that they have 30 people per 100,000? 30 people per 100,000. And when you scale up, you see Sweden, Denmark will go all the way to the top. And here's the golden standard country, the United States. You can see that we're outpacing the entire world. This is what President Obama says are the facts. It has nothing to do with how you feel about it. These are people that are in prison. And the United States of America, the gold standard, has not been able to figure out how to impact this incarceration skyrise, by the way. Just look at the number. If I close my broadcast today, it will be legitimizing the fact that we have a mass incarceration problem in our country. It's more than throwing a person in a jail cell and on to the next. You can see that there are countries who figured out how to deal with crime. India has 30 per 100,000. And America has 670 per 100,000. We have a mass incarceration problem. in our country. Next slide, please. Well, I wanted to make it a little more personal today. We're going to deal, and Sister Nika, you're exactly right. You're already in my slides. This is a system for profit. We're going to deal with this right here. I wanted to use my time today to talk about a young man. This young man, Javius Cotton. Now listen to this. This is a legacy of racial exclusion. There is an all-out blitz on the attack of the black man. I've said it, and I'm not going to back off of it. The facts are there to support it, and we're going to unpack them in this series called Colorblindness. Here is generations of black men born in the U.S. have been denied the right to participate in our electoral democracy. Did you hear what I just said? That one of the fundamental rights guaranteed to an American citizen is the power to exercise your right to vote. And what we're finding, I agree with Michelle Alexander, that there is all-out attack on reducing the black man's right, which was guaranteed by the Constitution. She gives an actual example of a young man. His name is Jarvis Cotton. Listen to this. His great-great-grandfather could not vote because he was a slave. You do know that there was a time in this country where people were denied the same basic right that the Constitution declared we should have. For we are all created equal, is what the Constitution acclaimed. We know that through many amendments, we finally are trying to get it right. But let's be clear about ourselves. Jarvis' great-great-grandfather was denied the right to vote, not because he was a criminal, but because he was a slave. Lord have mercy. It is the facts. And then watch this. His great-grandfather was killed by the KKK for trying to vote. My friend, it's a staggering stat, but it is the truth. Documented. And then Jarvis, his grandfather, didn't vote due to Klan intimidation. Why is that important? Because his father was killed by the KKK, and then they intimidate him and deny him the right for voting. Now, Jarvis' father was barred from voting by poll taxes and literacy tests. Lord have mercy. Do you know that the research says that a black person, when they went to the polls during Jim Crow eras, and we're going to talk about that, they placed a bowl of jelly beans or marbles in a jar, and they said to the black person, if you can tell me how many beans or jelly beans or marbles are in this jar, then you have been granted the right to vote. My friends, it is going against the basic human right as a person in this world-class country. And then now watch, finally, here comes Jarvis. It says Jarvis cannot vote because he's been labeled a felon and is currently on parole. Think about the number of black men who are incarcerated or who get out of prison and are on parole who are felons. My friends, it is a mass incarceration problem, and many people don't want to talk about it. They want us to say we want to see colorblindness, but when you look at Jarvis, there's no way you can say is colorblindness, because this man, through several generations, 5 generations of either intimidation or either denying of the basic right, which is the right to vote. Next slide, please. Good morning, Sister Janie, and good morning, Brother Reverend Dr. Linwood. I want to stop for a moment. Brother Linwood says my parents' voting precinct location was a state-owned by the Grand Wizard. In his lifetime, my friends, I want to help you today. I'm talking about people trying to put a etch-a-sketch and call it colorblindness. We are all one people. Yes, we're one people, but we have challenges relative to the context of our culture. And we know this, we see this, and we can identify with this in what is called mass incarceration. Now, thank you for sharing that, Doc, as well. Let's look at this next slide right here. This is called an incarceration rate. Now we're down to the nuts and bolts. We showed you that number earlier about the number of people per 1,000. But now, when you look at the United States, and then you dive even deeper into Black men and Black Africans, people of color, you can see that the numbers are staggering. That 2,207 per 1,000. And out of that 4,000, you can already see, you can do the math without just rounding up, that Blacks in America represent over half of the people incarcerated. My friend, we have a mass incarceration problem. And these are the facts. This is the source, institutional center for prison. What we've done, Michelle Alexander has done the work for us, is the facts are there and you cannot deny. What she is contending is that in this world-class country, there has not been a way to figure out how to reduce incarceration. But what we now know is these numbers don't even reflect some 9 years later. It's even worse, okay? So let's talk about, why do you think the numbers are so high for people of color in this world-class country when it comes to putting people in prison? All right, let's go to the next slide, please. All right. What we now know is there is what we call a caste system. Good morning, Sister Ethel, all the way from the Virginia area. When I think about this whole notion, we're looking now in this area of a caste system. When you think about this issue, I want to talk about what is a caste system. It creates a system or a form of social stratification. Yes. The simple definition is a caste system is a system of dividing people in social categories. A caste system is defined primarily by social honor attained through their personal lifestyle. There has been created a caste system in America that people are divided based on their culture. We even now know that people are put in a caste system based on their color of their skin. The late Dr. Martin Luther King argued passionately the day would come when his own children would be judged by the character of their person and not by the color of their skin. Let me tell you, my friend, this is a very, very tough conversation, but in America, we have this caste system. For we now know the first real caste system was around slavery. Then we're going to talk about another caste system that even after they abolished slavery, here comes Jim Crow. Many people have lived through this Jim Crow and still alive. They remember going to a water fountain and saying colors only or whites only. That's that Jim Crow era. Or going to a restaurant and seeing signs saying blacks in the back. We're going to deal with that. That's the caste system, where a group of people are put in a category based on their social status. Let me tell you something. This is the third world country of America. Many people say, listen, you're just an angry black man. And I want to deal with that too. Listen, the facts are what the facts are. And then finally, there's another caste system called mass incarceration. We know that this is true because we found, we're going to deal with this also, two people with the same crime and get different sentences. My friends, this is a mass incarceration challenge in our country, and we must figure it out, because the more people we incarcerate, the more we have to take care of. You do understand that there is a process there. At some point, it becomes overburdensome to the same country who's trying to throw everybody in to this caste system. So let's go to the next slide, please. I want to try to help somebody today in my presentation. This caste system that we've talked about. Number one, let's deal with post-slavery and the birth of Jim Crow. There are what we now know to be called black codes. For example, if you get a chance, you can look up the vagrancy laws that have language that is indicative of a certain group of people. I shake my head because these things have existed for some time. And here's another challenge. It's called convict leasing. My friends, if I had time, I'm going to try to get you a list of people. Sister Nika, that's why I said, Nika, you were on my row this morning, that there is a mass problem in our country. I found an article of a government official who was working deals with the wardens and the judges to send convicts to their institution to keep them profiting on people being sentenced. It's sad, but it's true that there is this notion that people can benefit by keeping someone incarcerated. And then this system works with the justice system to send people to these facilities that are privately owned. You heard it. And guess what? It keeps people feeding into this system. And so people make money by incarcerating a group of people. We do know about the Reconstruction. Michelle Alexander does an awesome job in her book, The New Jim Crow. She raises this notion around Reconstruction. It was in 1867 through 1877, 10 years that they used the military. Lord have mercy. I'm telling you that many people, they don't want to talk about it, but this is our history. We cannot deny it. And I want to just bring some amplification around some concepts that many people did not know. For example, the 13th Amendment. We do realize it abolished slavery. So what that means, my friends, is that the original Constitution didn't quite get it right. And it took a 13th Amendment to abolish the right to have slaves. Then we know that the 14th Amendment came, which gave due process and equal protection under the law. We're still trying to get it right. The 15th Amendment, black men could vote and were elected to office. 15% of the Southern elected officers were black, finally. But look how many amendments it took to get it right. All right. Then we want to talk about moving from Reconstruction to redemption. Backlash. Oh, if I was in church, I'd ask somebody to type in backlash. Listen, when you start making inroads or gains towards leveling the playing field, don't be deceived. It's going to come with some backlash. Listen, I can take that to the theological arena and tell you the same thing. The more levels, or the higher the level you go, the more devil's going to come with you. Don't sit back and think when you make progress that there's not going to be some backlash. My friends, who am I speaking to today? The very fact that you're moving forward, whether it's in your spiritual calling, whether it's in your professional career, listen, or whether it's in just basically human living. When you make strides towards progress, my friends, you're going to have some backlash. And here we find ourselves, even during this after this Reconstruction, where blacks are finally able to start appearing, we now have to deal with the backlash. Somebody ought to type backlash into our chat today. I'm taking my time. I'm not moving too fast, because there is this notion around when you move forward, you must anticipate the backlash. So many of us are caught off guard because we're too busy celebrating the forward movement that we don't brace ourselves for the backlash. Let's talk a little bit about what backlash looks like. After blacks, particularly black men, there was an amendment that gave black men the right to participate in voting. After all those years, now here comes the backlash. Political campaigns to reverse gains on Reconstruction. You do know that people in politics is what they call dirty politics. You ever heard the term? That they take part of a truth and distort it so bad until now you can't even recognize the truth itself. Let me give you an example. There is this political term, and Donald Trump used this term during his presidency, and he called it law and order. Well, he wasn't the first one to use that term, law and order. We're going to unpack that some more. President Ronald Reagan used that term. But what we now know is it is a political campaign with some racially tendencies behind the scene. For when you use the term law and order, it's a political term which has negative connotations for black men who they say are violent and very much fearful. So the term becomes what we know in politics as fear mongering. That if you can convince someone that someone is dangerous, you're more likely to get that person to vote in your favor. It's called fear mongering, and politicians use it when they want to participate in a caste system. Now, also, backlash came. Listen, Michelle Alexander gets an A+ for me. She also discovered the appeal to the fears of poor whites. So you have this caste system, and the caste system really is for the haves, and they really don't have nothing to do with the have-nots. And so they began to appeal to these have-nots, but only the white have-nots. Even though they were poor, they tried to bring in that political fear-mongering among those poor whites. And as you know, another backlash was the KKK, which emerged during all of this, trying to level the playing field. People unwilling to accept that change is here. And here we find ourselves in 2023, and people still refuse to accept that change is here. How do you know, Williams? Because we just had an insurrection just a year ago with the down on Capitol Hill. People trying not to accept that change is finally here. We know these vagrancy laws and convict leasing. We talked about that. But the big one I want to talk about today is when you start looking at this caste system and people finally trying to move forward, they began to create segregation laws. And these laws, separate but equal, Lord have mercy, aimed at keeping poor whites from politically aligning with poor blacks and against white elites. It's called the populist movement. So segregation laws were aimed at keeping poor whites from politically aligning with poor blacks. You see what they're trying to do. If you poor, you're poor. But what they tried to argue is there's a difference, even in the poor people, there's a caste system that even poor whites have more rights than poor blacks. Lord have mercy. Next slide. I've got to move a little bit faster because I want to get to a certain place today. When it comes to this, a good morning to my godmother, Miss Hazel Board. Listen, who is a true resident and can resonate with a lot of these laws around Jim Crow and even in her generation with her mom and them being living in an era of slavery. I want to talk now about something that many people, it's a sore subject, but I wanted to talk about it. I'm over 18, and I promise you we can talk about it today. And it's called post-Jim Crow. Michelle Alexander really lays out some movements that happened when Black finally started moving forward. You do know, as I talked about before, that there is this backlash. Who am I speaking to today? That when you decide to move forward, you must anticipate the backlash. And so one of the things that emerged during this Jim Crow era, where they created laws that made it legal for people to discriminate against you, that it made it legal for them to post signs that said, blacks, your place is in the back, or your bathroom is a separate bathroom, or your water fountain is a different water fountain. During the Jim Crow era, I used to talk to my grandfather. He said, that he lived in the area where they had uh, uh, white water fountains and black water fountains. And I used to always ask this question: uh, uh, was the water different in the black water fountain than the white water fountain? Like, I could understand you want to say, y'all go here, y'all go here. But my question was the water any different? And I've had many people weigh in on that conversation, that some people actually thought, well, the challenge is water's water, right? We know the answer to that, but it's really right here that this Jim Crow era shaped black people's mind, that it was okay to have subpar treatment. But here comes the civil rights movement. Yes, my friend, we know that movement was speared by the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He fought passionately for people and to have equal rights under the Constitution that we all say is ours, right? And we went through this whole era of desegregation. Listen, it took the U.S. president weighing in, and even after weighing in, creating laws. We know how that whole desegregation, blacks were killed in that process of tearing down those segregated walls. And we also know that he fought for voting rights, because what we now know is one of the most powerful things you can do when you see corruption in politics is take your vote and go to the polls and unseat that person. That's been a known fact for some of the other groups, but for African Americans, we've been denied that right so long, until even in 2023, there's a staggering poll of the number of African Americans that did not participate even in the election system in this past year, 2023, that just passed. And so we know that it's still work to be done. But then the Dr. Martin Luther King began this poor people's movement, addressing not only black poverty, but white poverty as well. Listen, let me tell you something. And Dr. William Barber, who is our modern day Martin Luther King, is on the battlefield fighting even as we speak on the poor people's movement. Dr. John Mendez is a key advocate in this poor people's movement. I would ask you to even search in your town to get involved in the poor people's movement, because what they found was this caste system was really designed against poor people. And they put an extra layer on it, trying to say to the poor whites, even though you're poor, you're a little bit better than the poor blacks. And so this movement is to say, it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Native American. Listen, if you're poor, you deserve your fair shot at America's success and dreams. You want your slice of the pie. It's what the movement is about. It's about everybody. And then now here we also have what I called earlier, the law and order. Seed planting during civil rights movements. Race neutral language to establish the racial wedge. As I told you, when you hear things like law and order, it's a code word to talk about separating people. Crime was spiking. Listen, largely due to the baby boomers reaching ages 14 to 24, and black unemployment was skyrocketing. There were riots that some of you may even live through, you know about and have experience of. And then let's not forget the media, who is the ones to determine what we see on the TV. They sensationalize crime reports as evidence that desegregation and civil rights was African Americans led to the rampant crime. My goodness, this is all documented. There's no in between. The media tried to sensationalize crime reports, amplifying them, suggesting that the crime was up because of African Americans. And so I wanted to just bring some highlight to it. Next slide, please. What we find is there are political tactics as well. Yes, I want to talk about that for a moment. When we look at everybody, what we find is that everybody deserves a fair slice of the American pie. Now, I want to talk just for a moment on, let's see, my next slide should be, give me 1 second here, so I can stay on track. The political tactics. Let's talk about political tactics for a moment. Now, we know that, as I told you before, that the most powerful tool you have is your right to go to the poll and unseat someone who doesn't represent your interests. Intense focus on crime by the politicians. Like during this era, coming straight out of the Jim Crow era, politicians had to figure out how to keep this caste system going because they were benefiting by separating the haves from the have-nots. As I said, the media campaigns by politicians promising law and order and promising to restore states' rights and powers. Those were code words because in the South, they lost a lot of power. When it came to slavery, we do know that it ultimately resulted in a civil war. America, the great gold standard, was fighting internally within herself. We now know that to be the Civil War here in America. And the basis of that Civil War was around one word: slavery. People wanted to benefit. And so now the politicians who were up in the Capitol making the laws had to figure out how to stay in office. And they used racially coded language, but technically not overly rated. Now, we know that there were predatory criminals and welfare queens predicted in the media. Listen, that TV and that radio and that newspaper, I say to people, and I'm going to say it to my audience today, it depends on who has the pen in their hand. For you do understand that people tell the narrative based on who has the pen. Well, my time is about out today, and it's a good place for me to stop. We're going to talk more and dive deep into this, but think about it. Are you aware that there were books in social studies that didn't even have slavery in the books? And there are also this, well, it's not a new argument. I close today by telling you it's about who has the pen in their hand as to how the story is told. It took me to become an adult before I finally realized, watch this, that the history books are only as relevant as the person telling the story. Oh, yes, my friend. And what we now know to be true is that there was a lot of history left out of those history books. And fast forward to 2023, and we have still the same problem: the critical race theory. Yes, I want to talk about it because what we now have is the same argument that was post Jim Crow. That don't let this whole narrative get out. I close my time today by telling you I don't have to write it in the book because I lived it in my lifetime. And I just wonder, what's the problem that there is so much uh, fight right now around the critical race theory? Yes, I want to post Dr. Gene Flanagan's post this morning to the entire team to go across the screen, because what this is exactly what I'm talking about. Mr. Flanagan argues that the challenges continue to this very day. Politicians such as Governor DeSantis of Florida, Mark Robertson, Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Senator Phil Berger, and the Speaker of the House, Tim Moore. And listen, I agree, the list goes on and on and on. These politicians continue to block attempts to educate America, especially school children, of the true history of the struggle and the contributions of Black people in America. I would respectfully suggest that the Real Talk family watch the 6-part series on Hulu. Thank you so very much, because this is what this broadcast is about, is giving you resources. My time is out today, but I'm going to stand on the wall and I'm going to be that advocate voice. I know it comes with challenges. It comes with sometimes with rebuke, and I'm okay with all of that, because here's the thing. Our grandchildren deserve the right to know that this country that we live in does not have a halo over its head. There are some scars, and we have to own those scars. But at the end of the day, we don't live and let the scar define us, but we certainly don't live like we don't have a scar. And that's what Michelle Alexander is arguing. We have a mass incarceration problem. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on our next broadcast. I'm telling you right now, if you have a Black male, if you have a Black son, I want you to get them to tune in, because knowledge is power. And the more you know that there is an all-out assassination on your future success, the more you can arm yourself to be able to fight the good fight, because all of us deserve a right to have our slice of the pie. I want to close with a quote today that says, "We all, as the waves of success rise high, every boat deserves to ride that wave." I close with that today, because we are all in this together. But I'm telling you right now that you need to know that there is an all-out assassination on keeping the Black man down. That's all the time I have for you today. I got much more. I'll be glad to share this PowerPoint with you as well. You should also try to look into Googling Michelle Alexander, the new Jim Crow. And just to give you a pretext, what she is saying, and this is what I want to dive deeper into. We now took slavery because we know it is illegal. And there is a new Jim Crow now in America, and it's called mass incarceration. For the 13th Amendment said that you can no longer enslave a person, but then it also had one small clause which talked about unless they are a criminal. My friend, there is an all-out attack. There's a reason why the Black man makes up the greatest population in the prison system. There's a reason why there's a disproportionate representation of Black men in our incarceration system. Because when you become incarcerated, I close with this statement: you now are the property of the state. That is a staggering statement. And so you should know what happens when you are relegated to a system that was designed to keep you from your full potential. That's all I have today. I want to thank you again for your time. Listen, can I pray with you? Because we're all out to have our fair share of this slice of pie. in this great country we call America. Father, thank you now for this time of gathering and fellowship. I give honor to you, Lord. You are the greatest, and besides you, there is no other. As we leave this space, I pray, Father, that my assignment will have been successful in raising the awareness of the state of the Black man. In my effort to raise consciousness around the new Jim Crow, the mass incarceration in an era of colorblindness, I ask, Father, that you would give the people, your children, the power and the inspiration to join the fight to raise the awareness that all men are created equal. I give you praise now in Jesus' name. Amen. That's it, my friends. I'm happy. I want you to join me again next week. We're going to dive deeper into this notion around color blindness. I got some guests who are dying to get on board and to tell you about it as well. We all deserve our fair share of the American slice of pie, and I won't mind. How about you? Join me next week for 60 minutes as we go in. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. May God be gracious unto you, and may he give you peace until we meet again. Amen.